Welcome to Transform Your Workplace. I am really excited for today's episode. I've got Lacey Partipilo, who was #1 episode, and she's been on so many times, but it's been a little while since you've been on, Lacey, hasn't it?
It has been a little bit, but we go way back.
Yeah, we go way back, and there's been a lot that's happened, which is what we're going to talk about today. The last, I guess it's been, 20, 21 months since the day that we were sort of locked down
Mhm.
from the pandemic, going back to March 2020. Is
16th.
that
Yeah, March 16th.
You remember
No,
the day?
not that
So
time.
that was kind of one of the first things I wanted to ask you is, do you remember like that last moment you were in the office and like what you were doing, and what was your kind of thoughts? I mean, there was like these things swirling around about like this coronavirus stuff and just what it could mean. And did you ever think we were going to get locked down?
Yeah, I mean, even taking it further back in like December of 19, I remember we had an HR team meeting, and one of our senior HR business partners, sort of at the end of the meeting, was like, "Hey guys, I have this client, and they've got employees who are working in outside of the United States,
Mm,
in particular over in parts of Asia, and you know they're telling me about this thing called coronavirus, and
mm,
I think it's gonna be something we're gonna have to deal with." And I joke with her now, and I'm like, she's talking, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, why are we talking about this? We don't need to get all hyped up over, and I was obviously very wrong, and she was very right. And so that was like the first taste of the conversation that could this be something that impacts us? We didn't have a lot of clients that had remote workers for one. We didn't have a ton of clients that had people, and we still really don't, that have international employees.
right.
So
Yeah.
it felt really far away. And then
Yeah. It felt like we were in this bubble or something. Like it
it
was,
did.
it's not gonna affect us. Like,
Mhm.
and so we didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah, and I think I was on vacation the week, before things locked down, because I remember we were camping, and I remember the campground was closing on our last day, like, Governor Brown had, like, shut things down, and so I remember listening to the radio driving home, and so I think I was gone from the office the last day that we were in person. I'd have to,
Mm.
like, look back, but I think I was gone, but I remember thinking, 2 weeks? Gosh, wow, we're gonna get to work remote for 2 weeks? Like, that's
2 weeks,
kind of
2 weeks
exciting
to
to break
flatten
the
the
curve.
curve.
Yeah, flatten the curve. Um, and then 2 weeks turned into
Oh
3
yeah.
weeks and 4 weeks, and obviously here we are today. But I definitely could not have predicted all of the just wild things that we've had to support with for the last almost 2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. It's weird because like as a business and organization, I mean, to adapt to this like remote work or kind of lockdown situation, I mean, you have to adapt pretty fast. Like, thank God we had technology in place, and I
Mhm,
mean, I hope other organizations and people that are listening to this podcast were. I wonder if they're reflecting back and saying, "Wow, thank God we had XYZ in place so that we can actually do this."
mhm,
Otherwise, you know, organizations were probably IT departments were scrambling to get like Zoom in place or Microsoft Teams or all these like tools to like so productivity wasn't lost.
mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
did you
we
ever?
we did it quickly. I felt like
Yeah, we did.
we did a good job. I have a
I
lot
think
of clients though that didn't work remote, and so they had people, like, they had to stay working. They
right.
use products or whatever, and so there's
Yeah.
this whole other, like, how do we keep people safe while they're
Right.
here? So it was almost like supporting 2 different, um, big challenges. The How do we fully go remote, or go, half the people remote, and how do we
Yeah.
keep the people who are still coming in every day safe and wanting to come in and staying motivated about that?
What do you think the like percentage of your clients that, you know, had the ability to go remote versus ones that like no, like we have a facility and like production environment, whatever it may be,
Mhm,
where they actually physically need to be in like a warehouse
mhm,
or shop floor, whatever it may be, and you're like consulting with them on like here's some safety practices and how we get around this with all the mandates, and then on the other hand, you're consulting with clients like with like here's how to do remote and here's some
mhm,
policies like
mhm.
what was that experience like because you kind of split in two different directions, I'd
Yeah,
imagine.
I think it was. Probably in the majority were in the middle where they had some remote and some in office. Like it was
Weird.
there's obviously the folks that had everybody go remote, and then there was the ones who they couldn't have anybody. And I think a lot were in the space where Xenium was, where we had these essential positions that needed to be in the office for whatever reason. I mean, for Xenium, it's like printing and stuffing paychecks to go out to our clients' employees.
So we have like essential workers who are like in the office because they need to print checks and get them
Mhm.
out, mail them out to
It's
our
important.
employees.
People gotta get paid.
I know, right?
So, I think it was interesting, and, like, nobody kn we were like, what do they say? You're building the plane while you're flying it. That's how it
Mm,
felt, like, nobody knew the answers to anything. Nobody like, there was no playbook to this. Nobody we didn't have, like, a prior experience even to look back on and say, "Here's how we navigated through this
yeah.
challenging situation." We were really kinda making it up as we went along and relying on the partners and experts,
Mhm.
that were out there. Thank goodness that we had our director of compliance, Eileen. She's the real MVP for the last 2 years,
Behind the
seriously.
scenes MVP for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because like you were saying, like we're kind of doing this on the fly and learning and but like our clients are relying on us. So like the work that you do is like the value and what you and your team bring to some of these organizations who are like panicking, right? All they're trying to do is keep their doors open and serve
Mhm.
their customers or build the widget or whatever it may be. And you're probably scrambling to find answers for them. Do you
Mhm.
remember like the kinds of questions that you were getting early on?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, initially, when everyone was hearing about the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, or
Right.
FICRA is what eventually
Yeah.
we called it. So, like, how should people be paid? When are they eligible for the pay? Do I even have to pay them? Especially the questions around the extended paid family leave for people who had childcare issues. Um, Trying to navigate that and whether, the employer was required to offer that extended leave or met some of those sort of exception rules. And then businesses that didn't have work, we were getting so many questions about, well, can they qualify for FICRA pay because of lack of work, because the lack of work is related to the pandemic. And so there was some, trying to navigate what that looked like. And then, safety protocols. Like what do we need employees doing? Should they be wearing masks? What about social
Mhm.
distancing? Can we have people working, right next to each other? So kind of all of that was, I feel like, the initial onslaught of the questions that clients were concerned about.
Let's speak about you personally. We went remote like
Mhm.
100%. And I think I remember at one point, we were doing like team happy hours and stuff over Zoom and we're
Yeah.
like, when do you think we'll go back? Oh, yeah, July. And like July came and went and we're like, okay, this is like we're hunkering down. So
Mhm.
you manage people
I
and
do,
you're
yeah.
also serving clients. So I want to talk about the management of people for one. Like, how is your team doing with this, and how did you feel like leading people remote was doable at that point, or
Mhm.
did you struggle with it?
I think in the beginning, the workload and the supporting on things that you weren't savvy about yet is really challenging. And then you add in the layer of, like, our businesses that we support, our clients, some of them weren't doing well financially, and so
Mm,
navigating the heartbreak that comes with some of them closed their doors. Some of them, I mean, we
yeah,
were
I do
we were
remember that.
supporting with massive layoffs and kind of, I liken it back to like 2008 and 2009 and going through some of that. We had that experience to help us kind of think through how do you support in a situation where 50% of the company is being laid off. There are regulatory things to think about and the human side of it. So I think people were we were just like drinking from a fire hose, trying to figure it out, and then adding that layer, like you said, of managing those people. Um, I I think it's doable. I've had, HR on sites that have worked on site at clients that I've managed, so I'm not with them every day. So I
Right.
feel like maybe that experience helped a little bit, and using technology, Zoom and Teams made a big difference. But we definitely, like, increased the frequency of check-ins, so rather than just doing sort of the monthly one-on-one, we were touching base weekly because we weren't seeing each other, grabbing a cup of
Yeah.
coffee anymore or, like, popping into my office to ask me a question. Um, I think it was exciting in the beginning a little bit, if I'm totally honest, like, it was different, most of the people that reported to me sort of worked um, in office, out of office schedule because they were out with clients. So it wasn't uncommon to not see somebody that reported to me for a couple days, depending on what their client schedule might look like. So it wasn't totally weird, but we definitely missed each other. I mean, we were doing things like meeting up in the parking lot and just drinking
Yeah.
coffee like in a circle, social distance. That
Yeah.
was helpful in the beginning. But it's weird to think to look back and think about those times because it feels like it was yesterday, but it also feels like a lifetime ago.
It does. I mean, it's almost been 2 years now, and there's a
Mhm,
lot that's happened. I mean, do you remember, like, some key moments in time? Because I remember, like, when it first happened, we shut down,
mhm,
and then just, like, this excitement around, like, "Oh, maybe we'll go back at some point soon," and then that came and went, and then the George Floyd stuff happened, and it was just like the whole world seemed like to be on fire, and there's just like just drowning in negativity with coronavirus and that, and it was. I just remember those moments
mhm.
vividly. What about you? Was there key
Yeah.
moments, whether positive or negative, that you can think of?
I think so. Those ones stand out to me. I think when school got out in 2020 and the summer
Yeah,
of 2020, just personally for me, navigating fifth grade with my daughter was really challenging. And then actually, it was the end of fourth grade, so she's in sixth grade now. So the end of fourth grade, having like that, in March, all of a sudden you're going remote. So that moment when school was done was like a huge relief moment, and so that stands out. I some of the moments that I think about are like moments with clients, like really tough
yeah.
decisions that they had to make, outbreaks that they had, and trying to navigate through what does that look like. Um, I think there I don't remember moments where it was like we're almost going to go back, and I don't know if that's just because I just felt so in the trenches with clients that
Yeah.
I didn't lift my head up enough to, like, think optimistically maybe, but, I think the closest that I felt like we were really going back was September, and
It
then
was, yeah.
Delta came, and it's like, "Okay, we're
And
not,"
we'd
and
even started communicating that to the employees, and
yeah.
we were prepared, and then
Mhm.
another, and we're
Right,
talking about 2021 September,
right,
for this,
right.
and it just never happened
It
because,
didn't.
well, it was interesting because I'm on the senior leadership team, as you know, and we were talking about this, and we have regular conversations about like, "Oh, when could we go back?" and all that, and I remember, I think it was in August, and we're planning for September. We even communicated that to people, and I'm just sort of sitting there. I think Ann, our president, was going around. We were going around the horn, just talking about it, and I said, and I think people agreed with it, and I think people latched onto it. But I'm like, with school starting and these just hearing about these new spikes of the Delta variant at the time, and just it just seemed like it was heading in the wrong direction again, and I'm
Mhm.
like, "What's the point?" And I said, with school and people, like, kids going back and being around other people and getting sick, like, it's inevitably, and then you enter flu season, I'm like, "What's the point of going back in September? People are just gonna be uncomfortable." So,
Totally.
luckily, we had the option of just like, "Yeah, let's just kick the can down the road a little bit
Mhm.
and delay it," and that's what we did,
Mhm.
and even to this day, we're still talking about it, but, I mean, now
Mhm.
we've got the Omicron variant,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I'm not trying to make fun of it or anything. I'm just saying, like, it's just always going to be something. And I think this is, personally, I just feel like this is the way it's going to be for us, at least.
I think so, and I think there are businesses who went back in the summer, this last summer, and some of them paid for it, in
Oh,
terms
really?
of
Like with
just
outbreaks or something?
yep, yep.
Right.
I think when the mask, at least here in Oregon, when the mask mandate went away and then had to quickly come back, I mean, there
Yeah.
were impacts to that this is probably the for me, at least in my career, the probably the biggest impact to clients in terms of like things that were decisions that were made, at the city level, the government level. So just thinking through like the mask mandate, like
Yeah.
it's here and then it's gone for a little while, and the impact that that had so quickly for the clients that I was supporting in terms of exposures or
Yeah.
people getting sick, and the pressure that owners and HR people had to have on like what's the right thing to do? Do we still require it even though our employees are
Yeah.
frustrated, they don't want to wear the masks? How do we accommodate people who can't wear the masks? It's been um I don't know. I don't even think there's not a word to fully describe the impact. Um I think that it's had on people that do the work that I do every day.
Yeah. Exactly. I want to talk about you personally and just how you balanced everything. Like you were just talking about like your kids and
Mhm.
managing the school stuff. So if you think about like the end of 2020, the school year of 2020, that is, where was like 3 months of like trying to help your kids do remote school. And then, well, you got a young one too. So I guess he was probably going to daycare, which was probably
Yeah.
shut down. So like, I want to know how you manage that stuff. And then also like the work stuff, which was speeding up for you because you're supporting all these clients with the COVID.
Mhm.
And then just how like you personally balanced yourself, like did something for yourself so where you didn't go crazy.
Yeah. I don't
Or
know.
did you go crazy?
Probably depends on who you ask.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it was hard. I've got a 3-year-old who is in daycare. Luckily, his daycare stayed open for the majority of the time. We've only had, knock on wood, one closure due to COVID.
That's good.
Um, and I think the 2020 school year or end of school year was a lot rougher than this last one that we had that was
Yes.
fully remote because they had technology in place. There was, the teachers were prepared for it. It wasn't just, in my experience, busy work that was getting sent home to keep them, busy through June. But I mean, I'm fortunate. I have a really awesome cousin that is a teacher and took this last school
Mhm.
year off, and so she helped me with my daughter a
Amazing.
couple days a week. Xenium's so flexible, and so understanding that we're humans with families and not even just people who have kids, but people who don't, and that we need to not assume people can leave stuff at the door, or in the kitchen, I guess. I don't know what the at the door is anymore because
Yeah.
the
No,
lines are really
it's all yeah, it's
blurry.
all muddy.
Yeah. So, there were little things I think that helped, like taking my son to school every morning, like having to like physically get in the car, drive somewhere, come back. That was like a routine thing that some people didn't have. Like, I mean, maybe somebody's just getting their cup of coffee in the kitchen and walking over to their workstation. So little breaks like that keep some of the normalcy, I think helped. I mean, working out,
Yeah.
making calendar appointments with friends at work to just connect so that it's maybe we're
Yeah.
talking about work stuff, probably 90% of the time we are, but
Just
sometimes
checking in with each other too.
yeah. So you have to be more intentional about that, I
Yeah.
think, than
Well,
we had to before.
you encouraged me to get the Peloton, and then you and I became Peloton buddies where we'd kind of have a check-in and do rides and stuff, and that's been honestly, like, that's saved me
Yeah, it makes a
a
big
lot.
difference.
Because
Like
otherwise, I would just probably just keep working all the time.
yep.
There's nothing else to do. I'm just kind of at home, like, what else am I gonna do? So,
Yeah. You need the, like, mental break to step away you know, from your
yeah.
computer and the screens. The amount of screen time is, I think
Yeah.
I just like, even from a health standpoint, like, my eyes and just all of that, I feel like is
Oh, yeah.
probably suffered as a result of this. So,
Probably.
um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm better or worse because of it. I feel like I'm probably a lot more resilient. We have some
Mhm.
really great clients and they care a lot, and um, they, found ways to check in and ask how,
Yeah.
I was doing, and I know that that happened with my peers and colleagues too. So
Yeah.
that kind of stuff makes a big difference.
I mean, a couple of things that are positive that I see, and I'd love to hear what you think too, but just on the human connection side, I feel like there's more compassion and empathy and grace and like just people understanding like what we're going through maybe at home or in our lives or work
Mhm.
lives and just being understanding of the situation and offering flexibility and autonomy.
Mhm.
Like I felt that at at Xenium, and I hope like your clients were extending that to their people too, and just maybe have stronger connections as a result of it. And then two, like as hard as it has been, like being my family like on top of me all the time.
Yeah.
There's moments that I know, like when we're out of this at some point, or maybe it's just the new normal, but I'll look back and say, "Wow, I got to spend all this time with my kids."
Yeah.
And
Totally.
if I was going to the office every day, I wouldn't have any of these moments.
Mhm.
So, like having lunch with my kids when they were doing remote school, like what?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's a huge positive. So, like just being able to have a relationship with my kids at a much deeper level than I would have otherwise. I mean that's something I'll never probably get again.
Mhm. Totally, I totally agree with you. And actually, I miss that my daughter isn't here. I mean, she's in middle school now,
Yeah.
so she's going every day, and I miss feeling connected to her work. I could log into her Google Classroom, whatever, because they're still using all of that now, and see what's going on. But like being able to see her working on stuff, or even hearing her, you know, engaging in the classroom, it's like you get to be a little fly on the wall in their
Yeah.
little world. And I definitely think that that was a positive thing, and I super appreciate that. I think the other thing is people not going to work when they're sick, people not sending their
Yeah.
kids to school when they're
That's a
sick.
great point. I think that those days are gone where people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a hero and come in with a cold."
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
agree.
"Stay the hell home, like, don't
Right,
come bring that to
right. Or
people."
wear a mask. Like, if you're feeling
Right.
fine, but somebody in your house is sick, wear a mask. Like, I just think that that respect for people's well-being, I really think that is important, and I hope that continues. And then to your point, just like employers being flexible, I've seen it happen. I've seen employers not do it, and I've seen
Yeah.
what that impact has. And so, I was talking to Kelly, or one of our senior VPs, yesterday about this. And we hear a lot of businesses frustrated about the impact that this remote work has had on morale or collaboration
Mm,
or just team spirit. And I want to acknowledge that is totally a thing in a lot of businesses. And I think what's happening, and Kelly and I really like kind of dug in on this, is we're so thinking that the only way to get that back is to go back into the office, and that
right.
we're focused on that being the end game. And I think,
Hmm.
and I don't know that that's not right. Like, I do think that if we were back in the office, there are a lot of things that would be better and different and could make a positive impact. But I think one way to maybe flip it and think about it differently is how do we, in the environment that we're in, what do we need to do differently so that we can have that stuff?
Yeah.
We can find time, make space for collaboration. And I think it's because it's easy to just be like, well, we did it easier in this other kind of environment where we
Yeah.
were all together. So in order to get that back, that must be what we need to do. And I just don't agree with that. I think there's, maybe a hybrid is probably the right option for most
Right.
businesses, but spending more time thinking about how do we
Hmm.
increase those things that we're missing in the environment that we're in right now, because
Yep.
it's the chances that we go back to this or this happens again, like this isn't, like you said, it's not going away. So
Yeah.
um and if you're going to continue to try to attract the best talent, you may have to look outside of the city that you're in, the state that you're in. So what
Yeah.
about those people? How do we keep those people engaged? How do we create this team oriented environment where people can collaborate? And maybe it's not exactly the same as what it was before, but I think it's possible. I don't have the answer for what to do. I know some things we're kind of trying, but
Yeah.
I really think that that's where people should be spending their time, and not planning for the return to the office, but also what are we going to do remotely that's going to make an impact
Yeah.
too.
I love what you said because I'm afraid that leaders, I'm not just talking about our organization, but other organizations too, if leaders are planning for a future that looked exactly the way it did before all this happened, I just don't think it's going to be there. And I'm concerned that they're spending too much time and energy planning for an environment that people don't want anymore.
I
So,
You said it
so
much more
like,
succinctly than I did, but that's exactly what my fear is,
I
because
think people are going to be
expectations have changed.
Right, people are gonna go back thinking like, "Oh, this wasn't the way it was before," and, like, they'll be sad about it and, like, mad probably to a certain extent of, like, "Why did we put so much time and energy on, like, trying to go back to what we had when we could have flexed and adapted to this, like, hybrid environment or whatever?"
Mhm,
I think we're in a different environment, and I think
mhm,
there's a lot of positives, and we just as leaders specifically, and you as a consultant with your clients, people gotta wake up and say, like, you know, the world's different, the work environment's different, the way people work is different.
mhm,
No
mhm.
more of this 9 to 5 button seat thing, unless you're developing a widget on a factory floor or something, but I
Yeah,
mean, people wanna work when they wanna work, and they wanna
yep,
be there for their family, and some people like remote, some people don't. Like, I think you've just gotta really pay attention to what people are wanting, and the culture concern is a real thing, and I think you just have to pay attention to what people want.
mhm. Yeah, I think people are different, their needs are different now, and I'm a different employee than I was 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and so is my team, and so is what they need and what their families need. So if we focus so hard on trying to get back to what it was, I think what we're gonna find is that that isn't actually what people want,
Yeah.
and this great resignation that we're experiencing right now will be amplified.
Yeah,
And it'll
I
be a
agree.
competitive advantage for the companies that do manage to figure out how to have both, how to have the
Yeah.
culture, how to have the fun, and also allow people the flexibility to work where they want to work.
Mhm.
That'll be the new, unlimited PTO that people
Right.
were doing, a few years ago.
One thing I've really noticed, which is kind of a weird situation, and now I'm hoping like we can use what we've learned and make a better future, but the extremes. Like we went from one extreme to the other. So in previous times we were, like a tip 9 to 5 in the
Mhm,
office, like you commute every day, and it's just like this extreme of like being at work,
mhm,
button seat sort of situation. And then you go to this other extreme of like now you're fully remote. And in both of those extremes, there's comfort. And I worry that now we're stuck, at least with our type of professional services, we can do fully remote. I worry that people are so stuck in this comfort zone that they don't really want to ever go back. But I think the answer is like somewhere in the middle of like the other day we had a senior leadership like offsite, but it was in the office. So I commute and it took me like 40 minutes, but I listened to an audiobook on the way
mhm.
there, and the transition time, I'm like, man, I really miss this.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
the just sitting in a car, boring, but I'm listening to Will Smith's autobiography, and I love it. It's entertaining. So the 40 minutes went by fast. Got to the office, I had that transition time, and then I'm like engaged with people like in
Mhm,
person. And then
mhm.
after that, I go back home, and the rest of the week I'm working at home, and like I like that balance of both things, and I
Me
think
too.
that's the future. I think that's the
I do too.
future.
Yeah, I'm going to a client in the morning tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to, the chance to get out and engage with people too. So I think there has to be some kind of balance for especially for critical things where they can be done more
Yeah.
effectively in person and it has a positive impact on the individual and the organization. But I agree with you. I think people are comfortable and are fearful of what am I going to lose if I am subject to a change that maybe isn't going to work for me, because I know for me, like, I can work till 5 or sometimes later because I'm home, whereas before, if I didn't leave at 4:30, I'd sit
Yeah.
in an hour of traffic versus 25 minutes of traffic, or trying to get to kids after school things or pick up from daycare on time, like all of those pressures that come with just being a working parent, and that's the life I live. I know that's not everyone's.
Right.
People have other commitments after work, volunteering and that kind of stuff, but having the commute allows for what you're talking about, the kind of turning your brain off or shifting your focus from what you were doing
Mhm.
before, and there's value in that. But I also think eliminating that a few days a week or all week, even whatever the case may be, can help certain people.
What have you learned about yourself during this whole time?
Hmm, that's a good question.
Or
Um,
or if you can't answer that one, what habits, good or bad, have you developed during this whole time that
yeah.
you've recognized?
I mean, I'm definitely paying more attention to, like, just health. So, like I said, like, the working out, eating
So you're paying
healthy.
attention more than you did before.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's more possible to do it, it's more convenient. I mean, I'm
Right.
looking at, like you said, we've got Peloton, like, I'm looking at it right now, it's staring at me. Um, so I think I've probably learned that, um, I I'm able to, just because I haven't done something doesn't mean I can't do it. So just that sort of fear of failure. I You and I talked about this. I struggle big time with imposter syndrome, and so just
Mm,
worrying that I'm not going to
as
be
do
able to
I.
do something. Yeah, I think this has shown me, you can be thrown into something that you have no idea what you're doing or what might come, and if you're surrounded by smart people and you have a team that supports you, you're gonna be okay. Maybe the other thing would be just, like, you don't have to know it all. You can It's okay to say, I don't know, I need to look into that, or we're still trying to figure this out. This is kind of what we're thinking, and fear that people will not be okay with that answer. I think there's been a lot more, I don't know, understanding of that than
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily expecting that. And people are resilient, and employees want to work. Like, they want
Yeah.
to do the right thing. People do not show up to do a bad job in most cases. So if
Right.
you can give them support, autonomy, encouragement, and everybody needs something different. Some employees don't need you to check in with them every day, and some do. And so, if you can figure out a way to be flexible and meet people where they're at, I think people will work really, really hard for you. That's been
Yeah.
my experience this year.
Something that comes to mind for me is the word, like, intentional, and I mean this in so many different ways, like, relationships, you need to have, like, intention to check in with people,
Hmm.
and I, because I otherwise, I feel like people get so comfortable in their little bubble that just, like, stay disconnected, and as a manager too, you need to make sure you're checking in with your people, so, like, being intentional about that is
Hmm.
it's a harder like, there's more effort that needs to happen, but when you can do it, the magic can happen, and I think
Hmm.
this remote work stuff can, in the new world that we're probably entering, will be, more successful for people who have intentionality behind it, and then intentional with the habits too. It's so easy to slip. I've noticed myself. I'm like, gosh, I'm home and can eat crap all day, or drink coffee all day, or
Yeah.
have a cocktail because I'm home. Like, it's all these things
Yeah.
where your habits, if you don't have like some schedule or your plan or whatever, like it's just so easy to resort to like whatever's the easiest.
Hmm.
So that's what
Yeah.
I've noticed, about myself personally and just other people too. Like, it's easy to
Mhm.
fall into a rut.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's important to communicate with people that you're close to how you're doing, and to, like you said, be intentional about checking in with people.
Yeah.
I know when folks do that with me, it's meaningful. I do try. I could probably do a better job, but I really do try to do that. And even, especially cross functionally, especially people that you don't interact with a lot, just saying, "How's it going?" I think about,
Right.
like, right now, our benefits team and just open enrollment and how busy
Oh,
things
yeah.
are right now. So just like that, taking a second to be like, how are you doing? I found that for me, it's really meaningful when people do it. And I think it's also, I've seen the impact that has on other people when I do make time to do it.
Yeah. Mental health. What's your take on mental health in this environment, whether it's you, your people, or just overall, like people in general during this
Mhm.
time? I mean, there's fear, there's struggles, there's all sorts of things that are contributing to like poor mental health. And
Mhm.
how do we support that?
Like I said, like, meeting people where they're at in this area probably makes sense too. I think nobody's doing really well. I think that's probably
Mm.
safe to say. Like, people have moments, but everybody's dealing with something, whether it's something at work, something at home, something personally. extended family, and this is something I feel like we see in our work just in Q4 in general, just around, maybe it's around the holidays, just end of
Yeah.
year. People tend to struggle, and that shows up in performance. And so then we talk to clients about managing performance and balancing mental health issues and all of that. So I think I can say there's for sure been an increase in that kind of work that we're supporting our clients with. Um, Internal employees too, like, just it's been a hard couple years for people. And so if we can't see people as the humans that they are,
Mhm.
and really that treat them like as a means to an end of getting a
Yeah.
product out the door or a service delivered, um, I just don't think that's the right way to
Right.
manage people. So make sure people know what their resources are, get the word out about employee assistance programs. If you don't have an employee assistance program, get an employee assistance program. They can make a really big difference. I
Hmm.
think all that stuff is really, really, really important.
Yeah. I wrote something on LinkedIn yesterday. I think I was reading a book and I'm like, okay, this is like, I believe this wholeheartedly. But, a lot of organizations and leaders are like, profit seeking, which is great for business because you can reinvest and stuff. But they're thinking about profit first. Like, so they're making decisions in the business that's going to get them like a quick hit. Whereas I think like, man, if you take care of your people, like internally, you take care of your customers, you take care of stakeholders, and you think about people first,
Mhm.
profit's always going to follow. You're going to
Oh,
have a
yeah.
successful business. And this time especially, I think this is more true than ever.
Mhm.
It's like the leaders that are taking care of their people, making sure they have what they need, supporting their mental health, giving them flexibility and autonomy. They're going to take care of your business.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Happy employees are is happy customers. So
Yeah.
every time, and businesses, your customers know when you're not doing that too. And I think, um, as a somebody who buys things, I want to buy from companies that do that, that do take care of their
Yeah.
people and aren't just making them grind it out. So,
Right.
I think it's like a full circle, right? Like it makes a big impact, and it's important right now, like you said, more than it probably ever has been.
Yep. Well, Lace, this has been fun. I've
Yeah.
I've had a fun time just kind of reflecting back and just where we're at now and just what we think about the workplace in the future. I think it's a bright future. I'm an optimist. I'm not trying to put on rose-colored glasses or anything like that, but I think there's a lot that we've learned during this time. It's made you said resilience. I think about that wholeheartedly.
Hmm.
The leaders and the people who are resilient, they're going to come out on top,
Hmm.
and I'm really excited about the future. I know a lot of people are kind of down on the future. I'm an optimist when it comes to it. So
Yeah,
I don't know
it's
about you.
good sentiments.
That's good. Well, thanks for joining me. I can't wait to
Absolutely.
have you back.
Yep. Thank you so much.